The cold dawn settles over the Oklahoma ranch. A gentle breeze carries the scent of hay and the clatter of the horse stable. In the simple wooden house amidst the prairie, a 77-year-old man sits quietly on an old chair, his trembling hands resting on a faded Steelers cap. That cap once accompanied him through the brightest days of American football when the nation held its breath each time the ball left his hand. Terry Bradshaw, Pittsburgh's hero, was the one who wrote a golden chapter in NFL history. Over a 14-season career, he led the Steelers to 4 Super Bowl titles, becoming one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Twice named Super Bowl MVP, inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1989, Bradshaw was the embodiment of 1972's American spirit, rugged, stubborn, and unyielding. He was the heart of the Steel City, where workers in hard hats cheered for him. Each of Bradshaw's long passes carried the pride of the working class, of people who believed that if they could rise after a long day in the factory, he could stand firm amidst the storm on the field. But time is unkind to heroes. The collisions that seemed unable to break him left dozens of cracks in his bones and countless pains in his memory. The body that was once a winning machine now trembles with each step. After the glory came cold, sleepless nights, mornings that began with painkillers and labored breaths. The man who once set stadiums ablaze now only hears the hum of an oxygen machine instead of roaring crowds. He once stood atop the world, but the price of glory was a loneliness. No one saw the years battling depression, bladder cancer, and sudden panic attacks. Sometimes, Bradshaw smiles on television, cracking jokes that make the nation laugh, but backstage, his hands shake, and cold sweat soaks through his shirt. "I gave America 4 Sundays of glory," his voice says slowly, hoarsely. "And now, each Sunday wears me down a little more." In the quiet of the ranch, the cheers from Super Bowl X still echo somewhere, a sound mixed with victory and farewell. Terry Bradshaw, legendary number 12, still sits there, watching the morning sun stream through the window. He can no longer run, but he stands tall in America's memory, like a warrior who gave everything. And if you ever wore black and gold, ever shouted as he threw a long pass in a blizzard, then remember this is the man you once cheered for, and the one America is slowly forgetting. 1948, Shreveport, Louisiana. The small town simmers in the heat and the smell of rusted iron in post-war America. Church bells ring steadily every Sunday morning, and fields of grass stretch to the horizon. In a modest wooden house on the town's edge, a blonde-haired boy lives with his father, Bill Bradshaw, a former Navy man, and his mother, Novice, a gentle but quiet woman. Bill believes in discipline, that men must be strong, skilled, and victorious. He doesn't hug his son, doesn't praise, doesn't speak words of pride. To him, love is silence. To Terry, that silence becomes a void. He tries to fill it with the sound of a bouncing football, with long throws on the empty field behind the school. Day after day, Terry throws until his fingers bleed, then lies awake each night, waiting for the bedroom door to open, hoping to hear his father say, "I'm proud of you, son." But those words never come. At school, things are worse. He struggles academically, speaks slowly, his thick southern drawl mocked by peers. Redneck dumb boy. Teachers see him as average, unremarkable, with no academic future. In a society that celebrates intellect and big cities, Terry, the country boy, clumsy with words, his mind fixed on football, is labeled lesser. At lunch, while friends talk about college, he sits on the sidelines, staring at his calloused hands, wondering, asterisk, are they right? Am I really dumb? Asterisk. That question haunts his youth, becoming the first shadow in his soul. At home, his father remains stern. Every mistake earns a rebuke, every failure a disappointed glance. His mother is kind, but her kindness is a fragile smile that avoids her husband's anger. At dinner, the clink of spoons on plates is louder than words. Terry learns to stay silent, to swallow his hurt. He finds his only refuge, the football field behind the church. There, no one laughs when he shouts, no one judges when he misses a throw. On the muddy ground, under the scent of sun-scorched grass, he begins to shape a dream to be seen, recognized, loved for who he is. The world outside doesn't offer that, so he must create it himself, even if it costs blood. At 18, Terry is accepted into Louisiana Tech University, a step that seems like the start of everything he's longed for. But fate isn't kind. There, among faster, more educated boys, Terry becomes the real country boy again. On the first day of practice, he drops the ball on his first throw. Laughter echoes across the field. His first hit in practice leaves his shoulder so sore he can't lift his arm, a minor but lingering injury that benches him for months. He watches his teammates play, hears the crowd's cheers from the stands, and feels himself back at the starting line invisible. At night, in the empty locker room, he sits alone, staring at his tired reflection in the glass, asking himself, "What was I really born to do?" The answer is only silence. But in that silence, something else forms, something America would later recognize, an unyielding will. When the world calls him dumb, he throws until his hands tear. When he's cut from the starting lineup, he practices past midnight in the rain. When coaches doubt him, he responds with a gritty smile. Terry Bradshaw wasn't born with genius, but with a heart that refuses to surrender. The lack, the mockery, the dismissive glances forged him into steel. He doesn't need anyone's validation, he'll earn it through pain, bruises, and every throw. The world never gave Terry Bradshaw recognition, so he built it from his pain. Each fall brought him closer to the man who would make America look up. And in the lonely darkness of his 18th year, amid sweat, blood, and mocking laughter, Bradshaw vows, one day, they'll all know his name not for talent, but because he never gives up. In 1970, the dream seems to unfold. Terry Bradshaw, the boy once called a country fool, is selected as the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Louisiana rejoices, but Pittsburgh doesn't. The Steel City is skeptical. They don't believe a slow-talking Southerner can lead their team anywhere. The press calls him too slow, too country, too simple. Headlines aren't welcomes but judgments. At his first press conference, Terry stands in an ill-fitting suit, smiling awkwardly as cameras flash. In the crowd, someone whispers. He doesn't look like a leader. He hears it, and his smile becomes a mask. His first season is a nightmare. 24 intercepted passes, countless mishandled plays. The press dubs him the bumbling Bradshaw, the clumsy one. Every week, reporters ask the same question. Do you think you're good enough to play in the NFL? At Three Rivers Stadium, when the team loses, fans throw bottles onto the field and shout, "Bench him!" The scene carves itself into his heart. After each loss, Terry quietly walks into the locker room, removes his helmet, and no one speaks. He goes to the parking lot, sits in silence, listening to local radio dissect why he's not smart enough to read defenses. Once, he hears them say, "Bradshaw has a strong arm but no brain." He turns off the radio, but the words echo in his mind. Coach Chuck Noll, known for his cold, disciplined demeanor, doesn't comfort or scold. He just looks at him after practice and says quietly, "You're not ready." Those 4 words feel like a verdict. Every game is not just a match but a trial. One missed throw brings dozens of boos. Each time he looks up at the stands, he sees thousands of doubting eyes. Each time he looks down, he sees only his muddy hands. The feeling of isolation, of a city turning its back, seeps into sleepless nights. He begins to doubt himself, something he never allowed before. Maybe they're right, he thinks. Maybe I'm not enough. The first wave of depression comes quietly. No tears, no drama. Just a lingering silence as he sits alone in a hotel room after a game. Dim lights, a muted TV, only the sound of his heartbeat and the ache in his shoulder. Some nights, he punches the wall until his knuckles bleed, just to feel alive. At practice, teammates laugh and joke, but when he approaches, the conversation stops. He laughs louder to hide his fear, talks more so no one hears the tremble in his voice. Once, after a bitter loss to the Raiders, he walks off the field in the cold December rain. In the stands, a few fans linger, shouting, "We want Hanratty!" They want the backup quarterback instead. Each shout is a knife. Terry walks slowly through the tunnel, hearing his cleats echo on the concrete, realizing even his footsteps sound like failure. In 1971, he starts avoiding reporters, avoiding the press. Some mornings, he arrives at practice before everyone else, throwing in the fog. His hands torn, his shoulder aching, but he doesn't stop. In that silence, no one judges. He throws, retrieves the ball, throws again hundreds of times, until the sun rises, until the field is empty except for his heavy breathing. Each throw is a defiance. "I'm not dumb, but the world doesn't hear." The voice slows. He is sinking in the city that will one day worship him. Pittsburgh, which once saw him as a joke, would soon chant his name across America. But those cheering fans don't know that in those early years, Terry Bradshaw nearly lost his soul. Each game was a crack in his mind, each shout a cut to his pride. When he steps onto the field, people see only a big man, but no one sees the Louisiana boy inside, still longing for a word of praise, a single acknowledgement that you're good enough. In the darkness of the stadium tunnel, Terry pauses, looks up at the dim lights ahead, and sighs. No one knows what he's thinking, only that he walks slowly, back straight, as if clinging to his last shred of dignity. And though shame threatens to swallow him, a small, stubborn fire still burns in his chest, one that will one day consume all doubts, even the fear in his own heart. Then the unbelievable happened. After years of humiliation, Terry Bradshaw began to rise. From 1,974 to 1,979, he transformed the Pittsburgh Steelers from a laughingstock into a steel dynasty, leading the team to 4 Super Bowl titles in 6 seasons, an unprecedented feat. All of America watched every time he took the field, and the name Bradshaw rang out like a starting gun for an era of dominance. Super Bowl 13, Dallas Cowboys. Winter 1979, the Miami Stadium packed, cheers roaring like a storm. The defining moment, Bradshaw steps back, catches the snap, spots Lynn Swann cutting through the defense. The stadium lights blaze down, the ball soars high, long, perfect 64 yards through the chaos, and when Swann catches it, the world seems to hold its breath. Pittsburgh erupts. Americans chant his name, a symbol of strength, belief, and resilience. But no one knows that in that moment, his shoulder throbs with pain. His wrist is numb, and every glance at the stadium lights feels like needles in his eyes. Each victory is a new wound, a torn shoulder tendon, a cracked wrist, swollen fingers. 6 years, 20 different helmets, swapped through injury after injury. After every game, he removes his armor, his body covered in bruises. In the locker room, thick with the smell of sweat and blood, Terry laughs, telling teammates, "As long as I can throw, I'll die for it." A boastful phrase, but also a prophecy of what's to come. Teammates recall, he'd play half-conscious. He'd forget plays but never stop. Many games he threw while dizzy from hard hits, his vision doubled. No time for weakness. In Pittsburgh, men are born to take hits. Bradshaw understands this. Super Bowl 14, Los Angeles Rams. Fourth quarter, the team trailing. His shoulder hurts so much the doctor urges him to sit out. He shakes his head, wraps another layer of tape, says, "I've still got an arm," then throws a 73-yard touchdown to John Stallworth. Pittsburgh wins. The city explodes. But that night, during the celebration, Terry lies in his hotel room, his hand frozen, unable to move. Blood seeps through the tape, and he laughs alone, because victory always has a price, and he's willing to pay with his body. Every night after is a private battle. Relentless headaches, ringing ears, flashing lights that force him to close his eyes while watching TV. The woozy feeling after each hit becomes frighteningly familiar. He starts forgetting names, losing words mid-conversation. But on the field, he still smiles, still leads. Fans call him tough as steel. But only Tammy, his old girlfriend from those days, knows the truth. He was tough on the outside, broken inside. Bradshaw's body slowly crumbles. Dislocated shoulder, sunken spine, pinched neck nerves. Some mornings, he needs team staff to help him dress. But in the papers, he appears with a bright smile and witty jokes. That's how he survives, laughing to hide the groans. With every win, he knows a part of him dies. And Pittsburgh, his city, where tens of thousands of workers wear his number 12 jersey every Sunday, never knows the truth. To them, Bradshaw is an unbreakable hero. But after each game, in the noisy locker room filled with celebration, he lingers last, staring at blood soaking through white tape, wondering, how many more games before I can't throw anymore? The fire in his eyes then is both desire and fear. He fears losing the only thing that gives him worth. From his first day in Shreveport to the NFL, everything he has was paid for with pain. Glory is never free. His body is the receipt for every victory. The 1,979 season ends. The Steelers hoist their fourth trophy. The press calls him the face of America's toughness. But that night, as the team's plane returns to Pittsburgh, Terry doesn't celebrate. He stares out the window, watching the city lights fade, his head filled with a ringing like metal struck by a hammer. The voice slows, heavy as a farewell. He gave Pittsburgh glory. Pittsburgh gave him scars. A lifetime traded for 4 trophies, 4 cold winters for immortality. But deep down, Terry Bradshaw knows every cheer out there was written in his own blood. In 1984, Terry Bradshaw plays his final game. No fanfare, no farewell ceremony, just a painful throw and a right arm he knows will never be the same. When the whistle blows, he walks off the field like a lost man, helmet in hand, glancing at the emptying stands. The lights go out. The crowd falls silent. The legend ends, without applause, without goodbyes. After 14 seasons, his body is spent, torn shoulder, worn knees, head ringing from hits that feel like hammer blows. But worse is coming, not physical pain, but the emptiness inside. When the lights go out, he realizes he doesn't know what to do without football. Back then, the NFL didn't talk about mental health. Men had to be strong, had to laugh, had to endure. Admitting exhaustion was weakness. So Bradshaw stays silent. He turns to television, becomes a commentator, the funny guy on TV, cracking jokes, laughing loudly, making the nation laugh along. But behind that smile are lingering headaches, sleepless nights, mornings waking with trembling hands he can't control. In hotel rooms after shows, he often sits alone, TV muted, watching the screen's light flicker on the wall before turning it off. Sometimes, anxiety hits like a storm. He recalls, "I'd have panic attacks so bad I couldn't breathe." His chest tightens, heart racing, as if someone is squeezing his soul from within. His body weakens, but his mind is what unravels. Bradshaw once said, "When you stop hearing the crowd, you start hearing the voice in your head. That voice isn't kind. It tells him he's done, that people only remember the glory, not the real man. It reminds him of mistakes, failures, a past he can't return to. The more he tries to push it away, the louder it grows. Some nights, he drives aimlessly around Oklahoma, stopping on the roadside, crying without knowing why. A man who threw in blizzards fears the silence in his own mind. Then there's love, or rather, the repeated heartbreak. 3 marriages, 3 times leaving home with a suitcase and disappointed eyes. Bradshaw loves sincerely, but can't stay. He fears being abandoned, so he leaves first. After each breakup, he buries himself in work, doing anything to avoid being alone. But at night, loneliness returns. heavier than any hit on the field. Every time a door closed, he says, my heart cracked a little more. Depression is diagnosed after a severe panic attack. The doctor says, clinical depression. He doesn't believe it. I threw in rain, in snow, in blood. I'm not weak. But his body doesn't listen. Bradshaw starts taking Paxil, hidden in his coat pocket during Fox broadcasts. On camera, he laughs loudly, jokes with colleagues, remains the cheerful icon America loves. But when the cameras stop, he sits quietly, hands shaking, cold sweat soaking through his suit. No one knows. No one sees. The man who once made 80,000 people roar now fears his own silence. Each night, he lies in the dark, hearing his heartbeat echo like the sound of a dead stadium. Friends say Bradshaw shines with an audience, but alone, he vanishes. He admits, I can make a nation laugh, but I can't stop myself from crying. Sometimes, he thinks back to when his father was alive. He still hasn't heard, I'm proud of you. Now it's too late. His father gone, his mother frail, the people who knew him in his poorest days fading away. And amid the studio lights, Terry Bradshaw knows those aren't the lights of the old stadium. They're artificial, cold, unfeeling, lit only when the show starts and doused when commercials play. During one taping, mid-joke, he stops. His hands shake too much. His eyes blur. Colleagues think he's tired, but it's another panic attack. He forces a smile, hides the fear with a firm handshake. When the cameras stop, he gasps, whispering, I'm fine. No one hears that it's a plea for help. The world sees the legend, but not the man breaking apart. They see the symbol of strength, but not the eyes wet with fear in the night. Bradshaw lives in two worlds, one loud with laughter, one empty when the lights go out. As depression lingers, he turns to faith. The church becomes his refuge. He kneels for hours, not praying for fame, only for one night of unbroken sleep. Each time he leaves, he carries a fragile hope that he hasn't been forgotten. The man who once silenced 80,000 fans now feared the silence of his own mind. The one who made America roar is left with only his heartbeat and fear. Legendary number 12, who brought 4 Lombardi trophies to Pittsburgh, finally faces the one opponent he can't defeat: the silence in his own mind. In his darkest years, when Terry Bradshaw's smile was just a trembling mask, fate sent him a small flame named Tammy. They met when both were broken, he, a hero worn down by time and illness. She, a woman who had lost faith in love. Between two wounded souls, something gentle happened. A glance, a laugh, and the feeling that the world still had a place to rest. Tammy didn't see the Super Bowl legend. She saw only the man sitting quietly by the window, hands shaking as he poured coffee but still trying to smile. That rawness made her stay. He made me laugh on days I only wanted to cry, she once said. But in Terry's life, happiness never came without loss. One sweltering July day, the phone rang, and Tammy's world collapsed. Her son, Cody, died of a drug overdose. Terry fell silent. He hadn't known Cody well, but upon hearing the news, he whispered, God, not another kid. The funeral was small, just a few dozen people. Tammy sat, eyes empty. Terry held her hand, his own trembling, unable to speak. He stood by the coffin, tears falling without him noticing. Later, when asked about that day, he only said, I lost a son. In Tammy's pain, Terry found a new duty, not to save the world, but to save the woman before him. Their love didn't blaze like fireworks, but smoldered steadily, like a fire in a winter hearth. They lived together on the Oklahoma ranch, Terry tending horses, Tammy planting flowers. Mornings, he led the horses to the field while she brewed coffee, setting out his pills. Those small acts were, to him, miracles. Tammy is why I still wake up each morning, he said, voice quivering. In 2014, they married. No fanfare, no lavish gown, just a few family members, old teammates, and a simple vow. I'll stay until your hands stop shaking. For the first time in decades, Terry felt peace not because the pain was gone, but because he finally had someone to share it with. His family slowly came back together. His three daughters, Rachel, Erin, and Lacey, from years of distance due to broken marriages, now found a place to reunite. They often visited the ranch, laughing around the dinner table, filming times, the Bradshaw bunch. To viewers, it was a light-hearted comedy. To Terry, it was medicine. Each laugh healed a crack. He became America's clumsiest dad, forgetting birthdays, botching meals, singing off-key, but fans loved him for it. Real, flawed, and kind. Yet, even surrounded by happiness, the darkness never left. Many nights, Tammy woke to find him sitting alone on the porch, staring at the sky. "Can't sleep?" she'd ask. "I'm just counting." Counting what? Old teammates. Whenever he heard of another Steelers players passing Franco Harris, Mike Webster, Dwight White, he fell silent for a long time. He counted in his head how many from the 1,972nd team were still alive. "One day, it'll just be me," he said softly. In the moonlight, the eyes that once burned with fire now glinted with fear of being forgotten, fear of waking to a world where no one remembers his throws. Tammy understood. She didn't try to console him, just placed a hand on his shoulder. To her, Terry didn't need to be strong anymore. He just needed to be real. And perhaps that's what saved him, not pills, not stage lights, but a woman who accepted the scars in his soul. Love gave him peace, but peace always came with ghosts. Each time he saw Cody's photo on the wall, Terry prayed silently. Each time he heard of another death, he quietly went to church, sitting for hours without a word. In that man's heart, love and loss had merged. He knew his life wasn't long, but at least now he wasn't alone. The voice whispers like the wind. Love gave him peace, but peace never came without ghosts. Love brought him calm, but that calm always carried the shadows of those gone before. And in the fading light of an Oklahoma field sunset, Terry Bradshaw, America's hero, finally found what he'd thrown footballs his whole life to find. A place to rest, a hand to hold, and a reason to keep breathing. 70 brought Terry Bradshaw not serenity but a new battle against his own body. In 2021, while filming Time's Fox NFL Sunday asterisk, he began feeling unusually tired. Short breaths, racing heart, hands shaking so much he couldn't hold a pen. At first, he thought it was just age. But one morning, when Tammy saw him hunched in the bathroom, face pale, she knew something was wrong. Tests came like cold knives. Bladder cancer, a small but malignant tumor, and within months, doctors found skin cancer on his right shoulder, where he'd taken thousands of hits in his playing days. 2 surgeries followed, his body wasting away. The incisions ached with every move, and sleepless nights returned, not from the noise in his mind, but from the fear of absolute silence. Still, Terry insisted on returning to the studio. That day, viewers saw him step onto the Times Fox NFL Sunday Times stage, face pale, hands trembling slightly, breath shallow. He joked as usual, but the smile was forced, his voice hoarser than ever. When the cameras stopped, he leaned against a wall, gasping. A staffer recalled. He stood there for a few minutes, eyes closed, hand on his chest, whispering, "Just give me a minute." To the audience, he was the hero, still strong, still laughing. But backstage, he was just a man trying not to fall. As rumors spread, fans across America sent letters asking, "Are you okay?" He replied briefly with his familiar smile, "I'm fine." 3 words, a lie as light as air but heavy as stone. That night, Tammy heard him crying in the dark. He tried to hide it, but his shoulders shook. "I'm scared," he whispered. "Scared I won't see my grandkids grow up." It wasn't fear of death, but of leaving behind, leaving those he loved. The quiet mornings, the clumsy jokes fans adored. Each day became a negotiation with pain. He used to command stadiums. Now he negotiates with pain. The voice slows, heavy. Once, He led a team, a single call moving 11 men like warriors. Now, he bargains with his legs just to cross a room. Pills line the kitchen counter like a battle formation. Painkillers, sleeping aids, blood pressure meds, anti-anxiety drugs. An oxygen tank sits in the corner, silent as an uninvited friend. Each morning, he starts with physical therapy. Just standing from a chair leaves him sweating. Tammy stands by, counting reps, encouraging him. When he walks 5 steps without collapsing, she smiles. He cries. "You don't get it," he says. "I used to run through men twice my size, and now climbing stairs feels like losing." Defeat was never easy for him, even when it's just losing to his own body. Each night, he uses a breathing machine, its steady hiss like the heartbeat of an old soldier. He calls it, "My teammate." On his nightstand, beside the pills, is an old photo Bradshaw holding his first grandchild. He looks at it every night before closing his eyes. "God gave me more time," he says. "I just want to use it right." And he does. Despite his body's betrayal, he returns to his audience. He appears on TV, talking about faith, hope, and never giving up. When reporters ask why he doesn't rest, he laughs, "Because if God keeps me breathing, I'll keep smiling." The words move America. The hero of old is now a symbol of courage, no armor, no trophy, just the raw truth of a man facing time. But behind each smile is a new pain. Some days, he's too weak for the stage, resting backstage. Once, after filming, colleagues had to help him downstairs. He joked, "Don't worry, I've fallen harder before." But when Tammy saw him later, face pale, sweat soaking his shirt, she knew he was fighting every minute. One rainy night, he sat by the window, watching distant lightning. "I miss the field," he said. "The wind, the cheers." Tammy replied softly, "But now you have your grandkids' laughter." He nodded, smiling. Perhaps that's the final game, the battle of a hero against his own betraying body. In the dim light of the living room, Terry's hands still tremble, but his eyes shine. Not as fierce as before, but with something else calm. He knows victory is no longer points or trophies, but each day he sees the light, holds the hand of the one he loves. The legend who once made 80,000 roar now finds enough in the soft laughter of his grandchild. Once, he lived for glory. Now, he lives to give thanks for each breath. In that fragility, Terry Bradshaw stands firm not with physical strength, but with the courage of a soul that never surrenders. At 77, Terry Bradshaw still appears every Sunday on Time's Fox NFL Sunday. He's no longer the radiant hero of the 70 seconds, but an old man with a hoarse, weak voice, cloudy eyes, and a slightly hunched back under a neat suit. Each morning, he wakes earlier than everyone, starting the day with physical therapy, slow, deliberate movements, but patient. His meals are now small portions, no salt, low fat, accompanied by a handful of colorful pills. Blood pressure, heart, anxiety, pain relief. The things that once made him feel invincible are now his enemies: time, his body, and memories. Yet he still goes to work, steps into the studio lights, and smiles. When colleagues tease, "Terry, when will you stop?" he just laughs, a kind, genuine smile, and replies slowly, "When I stop breathing." His wealth, tens of millions from television, commercials, real estate, could afford a lavish life. But Terry never lived for money. He donates most of it to veterans' funds, scholarships for underprivileged youth, and especially organizations supporting those with depression, people walking through the same darkness he once faced alone. "I don't want to be remembered for football," he says. "I want to be remembered for trying to help." Perhaps it's his quiet atonement for 3 failed marriages, for years lost to fear, for a body he once treated like an enemy. In the dim studio light, he no longer argues passionately as before. Each sentence is punctuated by labored breaths, but colleagues still listen, and audiences still laugh. They come not for expertise but for emotion, knowing this man fought not just on the field but in life. When the cameras stop, he quietly leaves the stage, walking slowly until Tammy takes his hand. "You okay?" she asks. He smiles. "I'm okay because I still have you." At home, the Oklahoma ranch remains where he finds himself. In the afternoons, he leads horses to the field, sits on the wooden fence, watching the sunset fall behind the hills. No more crowds, no more cheers. Just wind, grass, and the slow beat of an old heart in his chest. His hand rests on the old Steelers cap, the only memory he keeps intact. In the golden dusk, that wrinkled face still holds the smile of a man who made America believe no fall is forever. Many ask his secret to surviving so much pain. He answers with silence, then says softly, "I was never stronger than anyone else. I just never stopped getting up." Those words become a message to a weary America amid the noise of the era. In a world of judgment and rush, he teaches that strength lies not in cheers, but in daring to face silence. The voice slows, like a prayer for a generation that lived on Sunday broadcasts. He gave America victory. America must not give him silence. Terry Bradshaw gave America its happiest days, moments when the nation united in cheers. Now, as time steals his strength, all he needs is remembrance, a thank you, a listening ear. In the late afternoon, the day's final sunlight bathes the field in gold. Terry sits still, eyes closed, a breeze stirring his silver hair. An old horse ambles near, resting its head on his shoulder. He smiles faintly, a smile no longer of the field but of peace. In that moment, he's no legend, no icon, just a man who lived fully, fought to the end. If Sunday football ever gave you hope, if it made you believe in the American spirit, remember the man who made it real, the one who knelt in church over depression, cried from pain, but still smiled for the crowd, the one who made America roar and now only asks that America not fall silent before the pain he endured. If Sunday football ever meant hope to you, leave a tribute for number 12, the man who never stopped fighting. Because in every frail breath of Terry Bradshaw, the spirit of a nation endures courageous, resilient, and kind to the very last. There's a deep, almost sacred sadness in watching Terry Bradshaw's journey and realizing America often celebrates only the roar of victory, not the faltering breaths of its heroes. This is the man who gave Pittsburgh 4 Lombardi trophies, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, who threw the perfect long pass to Lynn Swann in Super Bowl 13, making a nation stand and shout, "Bradshaw!" But at 77, his life is no shining monument. It's a body worn down by thousands of hits, a spine stiffening each morning in therapy, labored breaths relying on an oxygen tank backstage at times. Fox, NFL Sunday, hands trembling while America thinks he's just funny on TV. This is the man who endured Pittsburgh fans' cries of "bench him," was called the bumbling Bradshaw, sat alone in his car hearing radio hosts mock his intelligence, and instead of quitting, answered with 4 championships. But the cost wasn't just a torn shoulder, cracked wrist, or 20 helmets swapped over 6 years. The cost was the life after the lights. Clinical depression so severe, he admitted, "I had panic attacks so bad I couldn't breathe." 3 failed marriages, nights when Tammy heard him cry not for lost games, but for fear of not seeing his grandkids grow after 2 cancer surgeries. We Americans cheered him as the tough as steel icon, but he taught us that true strength isn't never falling but saying, "I'm hurting," and still stepping into the light. The lesson for us isn't just to honor those who gave us the best Sundays, but to not abandon them when the stadium lights go out. It means respecting the veterans, workers, athletes who sacrifice their bodies for collective pride. It means taking men's mental health seriously, not telling them to toughen up. It means understanding that true legacy, as Terry himself said, isn't "remember me for football," but "remember me for trying to help others." America loves the invincible. Terry Bradshaw reminds us that the most admirable thing isn't invincibility, it's raw, fragile, and still kind humanity to the final breath. If Terry Bradshaw's story makes you believe true strength lies in rising after wounds, please subscribe and share to keep that spirit alive. Thank you for listening to the journey of number 12. See you in the next video, where we continue to honor those who gave America faith, courage, and hearts that never surrender.